Hello to all officials from Belgrade 2017. My name is Alex and I'll be delivering a module on brainstorming for all of you. And by all of you, I refer to the chairs team, the organizing team, and the media team. I hope all of you are watching this on our channel on Slack, because what I'll be talking about isn't solely for chairs, but also for those who want to chair in the near future. By the end of this video, I'll make sure to cover more difficult parts of brainstorming. But for now, I want to make sure that everybody is on the same page. So even if you've chaired 10 times before, or even if you've never chaired but want to do it in the near future, you'll be sure to learn something by watching this video. I'll be starting this video module by answering two distinct questions. What is brainstorming and why we do it? Firstly, the what question. Brainstorming basically gathers around a couple of people which are made to share their ideas as fast as possible so that everybody listens, but everybody gets their own input to the discussion. Why we do it in UIP? Well, to answer this question, you need to know what we're doing in committee work. We're trying to make a resolution, but we want to engage everybody so that all of the delegates get to talk, get to say something in committee work, so everybody's ideas are recognized. Even if they're bad, even if they're good, everybody gets a say, and that is what we're looking for. And that's what brainstorming really helps achieve. As all of you know, the brainstorming process falls after the beginning of committee work, because your delegates first need to undergo knowledge sharing phase. If they don't, then you risk having delegates which don't know their topic that well, or delegates that really have no idea what they're talking about. It is also of note that your delegates should be very well attached to one another by this point. If they're not bonded, then they'll not feel free to say what's on their mind. You need to make sure that they have no fear and they can say whatever they want without feeling judged by others. Something which you will definitely hear a lot in the UIP is that no idea is a bad idea. And even if it sounds cliche, then it is very true. Because if you have delegates speaking and sharing their own ideas with the others, even if you start from a really bad point, others will pick it up and think of something else. And in this cycle of sharing ideas, you will definitely end up with a really solid idea which you can most definitely put into a resolution by itself. That is the beauty of brainstorming. Perhaps one of the most important parts of the brainstorming process is knowing the difference between logical and lateral thinking. A logical thinker would first take the most obvious solution into consideration, and basically the solution which makes the most sense and is the most logical. A lateral thinker, on the other hand, would also take a solution into consideration, but they will not be excluding solutions which at first make no sense. Basically, let's say we're trying to reach solution E. A logical thinker would go from A to B to C to D to E. But a lateral thinker would start from point A, reach point R, then go back to point H, and then it will finally reach point E. Maybe it will take less steps at a lateral thinker, maybe it will take more, but what you need to take from this is that none of the aforementioned methods is necessarily good or bad, but you really should experience with both, because they'll not only be rewarding, but they'll also decrease the time brainstorming takes. Brainstorming also involves three parameters that you always have to take into consideration. These are called quantity, connectivity, and control. Basically, the quantity stands for how many ideas your delegates come up with. The connectivity is how interactive your delegates are with each other, how often they share their ideas, and how they can do this in the most effective ways. And control basically refers to how good each idea is. In the ideal world, all of these parameters are very high up. There is actually no method which does that. In the next following section, I will list off and explain a couple of ways you can implement brainstorming into your committee work routine. One of the classic approaches to brainstorming is giving all of your delegates one or two post-its on which they can write as many ideas as they possibly can. This is not a bad way of approaching brainstorming by any means, but it really doesn't have the aforementioned parameters that high up. When you think about it, yeah, there may be a very high number of ideas, but delegates are not speaking at all, and that is already a big problem because brainstorming requires all of your delegates to cooperate, to think of the best ideas possible, and just writing on post-its by yourself is not how you do it. Another approach to brainstorming involves imposing time limits for your delegates. You can say that in 1 minute and 30 seconds, they should think of as many ideas as they possibly can. We refer to this method as the superstorm. And even if it sounds good, you definitely have a lot of ideas, but really think that in just a couple of minutes, your delegates can think of the best ideas possible. So if you want to implement it, make sure you have another brainstorming method ready for the really good ideas to show up. One other method which I personally use all of the time doesn't really have a name, but requires delegates to be grouped. At first, they are by themselves and they have to think of 5 ideas. Then you group them with somebody else, and from the 10 ideas they have together, they have to only have 5. Then you group those couples with another couple, and you do that progressively, and at the end, you have the entire committee debating 10 ideas and trying to make only 5 of them. This obviously doesn't have that high of a quantity of ideas, but you can be sure those ideas are as good as possible because they have been debated time and time again, and you should really have no worries about this one. If you're thinking that the aforementioned methods don't sit that well on the connectivity scale, you can be sure that the next one does. This one as well doesn't have a name, but requires delegates to only write one idea per post-it, and it's split into rounds. First, you give all of the delegates one post-it and they write one idea. When all of them are finished, they read their idea out loud, and you take all of those post-its and put them somewhere on a flip chart. Then you give them another set of post-its on which they can also only write one idea. Then you take those post-its, put them beside the others, and then you give them one other round of post-its. You do that progressively until you see that your delegates have no ideas left. With this method, you can be sure that there's going to be a lot of very good ideas, and all of your delegates will be speaking to each other and listening to what others have said before them. A very simple method is 2-5-20. Basically, 2 delegates have 5 minutes to develop 20 ideas. And when I say 2 delegates, I mean every 2 delegates. So you group all of your delegates into pairs, and by the end, if they're successful, you have more than 100 ideas. It definitely has a lot of potential, but you really need to know how to use it efficiently. You definitely want your delegates to have a very good understanding of the topic beforehand, because there's a high risk that your delegates will simply come back to you and say that we can't possibly reach 20 ideas in just 5 minutes. Last but not least, a pretty funny method of doing brainstorming, which can actually yield results, is most efficient when your delegates are really bored or sleepy, or when you have very little time left. You basically ask all of your delegates to stand up on their chairs and to think of an idea to write down. They will have a very limited amount of time to think of it, and when they're ready, they have to scream as loud as possible, and only then can they sit back down. You can repeat that for as many ideas as you need, but I repeat, it's only very useful when you don't have that much time left or when your delegates are bored. If you can, choose the others, but this is a way to also energize your delegates and can be very useful if you can use it well. Okay, great. Now you know how to do brainstorming. Your delegates have brought up the best ideas they can, but there is a huge number of them. Your job is now to link all of them. And even if it sounds hard, it's one of the most important parts of brainstorming. If you cannot efficiently link all of the ideas that they have thought about, then your brainstorming is basically useless. You will spend the next 2 hours just looking at the piles of post-its that your delegates have written without real success. So without efficiently linking all of the ideas that your delegates have written down, you'll be wasting a lot of time. When it comes to linking ideas at the end of the brainstorming process, there really isn't a best way to do it. A classic way to do it would be to stick together 2 post-its which have the same theme, but you could also make a giant flip chart and draw lines between the ideas that your delegates have come up with. This doesn't only make it more appealing to jump into the rephrasing part, but it also shows the exact connections each idea has with another. Okay, this has been the video module on brainstorming. I'll be sure to write a lot more in the document which is attached to this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you at the session.